Attention all shoppers. If you have a sweet tooth, we have a special treat for you. If your purchases in the next half hour amount to $5 or more, we'll give you a bag of hard candies free.
This is a video essay about the 1978 George Romero film Dawn of the Dead, which I first saw in the summer of 1988, which, and I only realised this while putting this video together, was only 10 years after the film was made, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Oh, to be so old. Anyway, before I even get to any of that, I have to tell you about me and horror films before 1988. So prior to 1988, I both did and did not get on with horror films. Put simply, I was drawn to them, fascinated by them. They were just too scary for me, too dangerous. The only horror films I could really handle were older horror films, Hammer, Amicus, etc. And even those were almost unbearably nightmarish. But I was compelled to watch them. Maybe it all started with fairy tales, that giddy terror of being read Little Red Riding Hood and reaching the end knowing full well what was coming and being terrified and yet mesmerized at the same time. You just know that the words, all the better to eat you with, are coming and there's nothing you can do to stop them. Also, side note, I actually still have the copy of Little Red Riding Hood that my mum used to read me when I was tiny. And look at this damn thing. How was I supposed to not get lost in this? You ended up in that forest, in that house, your imagination running wild. We often say kids have a lot of imagination, but I think it's worth trying to stay in touch with that kid you used to be and the deep well of imagination that you once lived in, and how all-encompassing those feelings about what happened in the shadows were. Then there were those Usborne pocketbooks, the supernatural guides. At my primary school, we had a monthly trip to the local library, and I always made a beeline straight for the Usborne pocketbooks. You had to be fast or otherwise they would be gone. Man, I must have read those books 1,000 times. Another player in the game would most certainly have been the Horror Top Trump series, which introduced me and a huge number of other children to a wide variety of monsters. I still remember not only a lot of the cards, but also the stats they had, which is crazy. Death, horror rating 100, paff paff. I also had this very book right here, Monsters of the Movies, mainly focused on the Universal horror classics like Tod Browning's Dracula and James Whale's Frankenstein, but it did touch on others, including King Kong, which is perhaps a story for another time, and it gave me a good overall grounding in where horror was at in 1982. Unfortunately, the cover stars, the Universal horror movies, weren't really in circulation during my childhood. You knew about them, but didn't see them on TV. But the Hammer films, oh boy, they were on TV all the damn time. I got into a regular sleepover Hammer horror movie thing with friends, particularly around 1983 and 1984. And, as some of you may already know, my family had no VCR at this point, so the only way to watch these films was to actually watch them while they were broadcast on TV, which added a lot of drama and excitement to everything. These movies, of which there seemed to be an endless number, were about as much as I could really handle as far as horror was concerned, and even then, it was pushing the boundaries. You look at things like this now, and it might seem quaint or tame, but back then, it felt very different. I guess there was some of that childhood imagination aspect playing out too. These weren't phony baloney movies to me as a child. These were documents of pain and fear and terror, and I could feel them pushing me to the edge of something terrifying as I watched. There was also an instant where I stayed at a friend's house in 1983, Lee. Now his family did have a VCR, and he and I rented a film with his mum. I mention his mum because she was with us the entire time. This was a dark day because Lee and I chose Frank Henenlotter's Basket Case, and oh me, oh my. Throughout the entire film, Lee's mum kept talking about how we could have rented something really nice instead of the film we'd chosen. Lee countered that she was wrong and that this was a good film, and Lee's mum kept asking me if I thought the film was good too, and I just kept nodding, going, oh yeah, this is great. But what I really wanted to say was, no, Lee's mum, I've made a grave error and things have gone too far. Please turn this off and put on this nice film that you keep talking about. Please save me from this, Lee's mum. Anyway, that didn't happen, and we watched all of Basket Case, and the experience scarred me for many moons, and I have spent all the years since then wanting to apologise to Lee's mum for lying to her. So, following the Basket Case incident, I formulated the following equation. Old horror? Yes. Contemporary horror? No. And I stuck to that for a long time, and it served me well. And I guess by old, I mean set in the times of yore, and by contemporary, I mean set right now. I was happy with Hammer and Amicus and didn't need to go any further. Sure, there was the odd exception like The Shining or Christine or something else, but generally I stuck with the classics. But in the world of horror films at that point, aka the 1980s, something was happening. You see, it used to be that you could just talk about Frankenstein and Dracula and maybe the creature from the Black Lagoon or the Mummy or the Phantom of the Opera, and that was enough. But in the 1980s, horror movies started to become about different monsters and different nightmares. That terror of the monster getting you began to become far more about what the monster did to you once it got you. In particular, A Nightmare on Elm Street Street had become the zeitgeist of the moment, the wind that blew through every child's understanding of terror, and it was the only film that kids seemed to want to talk about for a while, and it became very important to have seen Nightmare on Elm Street. But after the basket case incident, there was no way in hell that I was going to watch that. But I was able to overhear enough conversation about the film to be able to piece the plotline together. From the outside, I may have looked like I was just having lunch with the rest of the kids, but actually, I was listening to them talk about scenes from Nightmare on Elm Street and putting the timeline of the film in order in my head, so that if anyone did ask me if I'd seen it, I'd be able to lie, say yes, and then bluff my way through the events quite nicely. Apologies to anyone at primary school that I lied to about seeing this, but, you know, never underestimate critical thinking skills, kids. They will serve you well. And then, a few years later, in 1988, I recorded some movie, and I accidentally recorded a second movie, and everything changed. You see, my grandparents had cable TV by this point, which included movie channels showing films we wouldn't get on terrestrial TV for years. I'd got into a regular habit of taking a blank tape round there if there was something I wanted to see that night, writing the time of the movie I wanted recording on a little note and sticking it on the wall, asking my grandparents to press record at the right time, and then picking the tape up the next day. I have completely forgotten what film they recorded for me on this occasion, because what was important was that the tape had continued recording, and another film had immediately followed, and that second film was Dan O'Bannon's 1985 Return of the Living Dead. I got home with no idea that there was a second film on the tape. I put it in, watched my movie, which was probably something a bit lame, like someone to watch over me, and then I left the tape running, and Return of the Living Dead started. But, you know, it was broad daylight, and I was feeling bold, so I broke my no contemporary horror movies rule, and boy, oh boy, was I ever glad about that. There are two types of first seeing Return of the Living Dead as a young person kind of people. There are those who found it hilarious and a lot of fun, and there are those who found it terrifying. I was firmly in the latter group. I got suckered in by the fun characters, self-reflexivity of this being a film in the world of existing zombie films, which I'd obviously heard about, and the simplicity of the building drama. Everything starts small, and I thought that this was going to be just fine, but then one bad decision after another takes things to a nightmarish level from which there is little, if any, hope of survival. Also, fun detail, the tape hadn't been long enough to record the entire film, so for many years, the only copy of Return of the Living Dead that I owned stopped right here.
Hey, listen. You hear anything?
Which gave the film a really, really dark vibe. Anyway, after seeing this film and rewatching it a heap of times, I was hungry for more zombie films but wasn't 100% sure where to start. As luck would have it, there was a newsagent nearby, a store which sold newspapers, chocolates, cigarettes, etc., which also rented a handful of videotapes, and this newsagent did not give a hoot how old you were. So I was able to go there, as a child, and rent the first zombie film I could find that looked good, but also looked like it wasn't going to 100% scar me for life, and that film was Dawn of the Dead. 1988 was the first year of comic relief, aka Red Nose Day. It was when the £1 note ceased to be legal tender, so no more jokes about Isaac Newton having a Toblerone on his desk. It was also the year of a salmonella outbreak, with old people on TV telling you how to cook your eggs properly, but most importantly, it was the year that I first saw George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. We start mid-event. The dead are coming back to life. No one knows why, and this is a great place to start. No sequences setting up the incident that will happen and cause the chaos. No patient zero, we're just in it. Boom. Everyone in the film understands and kind of accepts what is happening from the very first moment. Sure, they have different opinions about it and what should be done about it, but there's no confusion about what is happening.
People aren't willing to accept your solutions, Doctor, and I, for one, don't blame them.
Every dead body that is not exterminated becomes one of them. It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
We spend about 15 minutes on the chaos of the city, mainly represented through a TV news station and a siege on an apartment building. And then we're up and out with the gang. Peter, Roger, Franny, and Stephen, who everyone mostly just calls Flyboy.
Hey, where's Flyboy? Where's his 20?
Hey, probably up in the roof with Fly Girl.
Peter is the cool one, Roger is the capable one, Fran is the only one who really has much of a character arc, going from being pretty together to being close to a nervous breakdown to learning new skills and making it out alive in the end. And Stephen is absolutely useless. He can't fight, he can't shoot, he can't stay awake. All he can do is fly the helicopter. He's so useless that the first time I ever saw the film, I thought he was going to accidentally smash the windows during this moment. Our central characters flee Philadelphia, which is actually Pittsburgh, in a helicopter, hole up at the mall, get it zombie-free and sealed up, losing the capable Roger in the process, which is heartbreaking. And then the remaining characters get everything they ever wanted, which wasn't what they really wanted at all. And then the whole place is invaded by a gang of bikers. Flyboy is killed, Peter and Fran survive, and set off again as the sun rises on the mall's new owners. In the original ending to Dawn of the Dead, which was filmed, or at least partially filmed, depending on who you believe, Peter shoots himself and Franny sticks her head into the helicopter's blades when she doesn't see Peter climb up onto the roof. Game over. Zombies win. So the story goes, Romero was invited to the Monroeville Mall by his friend Mark Mason, who made an offhand comment about how someone would be able to survive in the mall if an emergency arose, and that was all it took to spark the whole idea for Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is the second part of Romero's initial Dead trilogy, with Night and Day on either side, and it's worth noting that Dawn has a distinct difference. In both Night and Day, our human protagonists disagree on everything and are very much at odds with each other, but in Dawn, we have a group of four who actually work together, help each other, and look out for each other. They communicate, collaborate, and cooperate with each other, and that cooperative background to the action is also very much representative of how the film was made. Dawn of the Dead is a testament to the kind of film and kind of filmmaking that you don't get anymore. It wasn't planned to be the way it ended up being. Things were made up on the fly. A handful of dedicated friends were working together and coming up with ideas for how to keep this crazy momentum going with as much fun and creativity as possible. And sure, the central player here is writer-director George Romero, but there are a lot of others. There's a huge number of other people who all add an interesting flavour to the film and who also did a lot of work behind the scenes, either on this film or in TV, film and theatre in general, particularly in Pittsburgh. Look at this. This is the film's production manager, Jay Stover, and this is Tom Savini, key makeup and effects artist, actor and stuntman for the film. Look, here's Savini being hit by a truck, and here, and these two kids are Tom Savini's niece and nephew. And this is the film's other stuntman, Tasso Stavrakis, and this is actor David Early, and this is the film's director, George Romero, and here's his wife at the time and assistant director on the film, Christine Forrest, and this is Joe Pilato, star of Day of the Dead, and this is John Amplas, the casting director for the film, and also the star of Romero's previous film, Martin, and this is casting director Sharon Hill, and this is actor and producer Marty Schiff, who was a stuntman on the film, and this is actress Deborah Gordon in her first film role, and this is Jeannie Jeffries, assistant makeup artist on the film, and this is Robert Williams, the boom operator for the film, and this is playwright and author Richard France, and this is editor Pasquale Buba, and this is director, producer and brother of Pasquale, Tony Buba, and this is director Howard Smith, and this is director and editor Lenny Lees, and this is Pulitzer Prize winning director Warner Shook, and this is John Harrison, director of Tales from the Dark Side the movie, and this is John Harrison on screen in Tales from the Dark Side the movie. The film would not be what it is without these people. Wim Wenders once spoke about his greatest talent being his ability to make films up as he went. The vast majority of films that we remember Wim Wenders for were not planned out in advance. There was an idea, a concept, a cast, a series of locations, and then the rest was made up as they went along. And key to a journey like that is the creative people you surround yourself with. Can you even begin to imagine someone trying to make a film like that now? That's right, no, you can't. Is that a shame? Oh boy, yes. Even when I first saw Dawn of the Dead, you could feel how it was made. It has an anarchic, kinetic energy to it. It feels like a cinematic patchwork quilt with multiple hands creating a varied yet unified whole. Shortly after seeing Dawn of the Dead, I found a copy of the Roy Frumkes film, Document of the Dead, in the same newsagent video store. And that confirmed a lot of my suspicions about how Dawn of the Dead was made. Roy Frumkes, for those who don't know, was the writer of Street Trash and taught film in New York. He was on set during the production of Dawn of the Dead and filmed interviews with key cast and crew members and behind-the-scene moments. He also played this zombie right here. At the end of the version of Document of the Dead that I saw, there's a catch-up between Frumkes and Romero on the set of Day of the Dead. And sure, maybe Frumkes was on set for less time than before, but it accidentally identified something about how filmmaking practices have changed over the years. Don't get me wrong, I love Day of the Dead, but the scenes of the film's production in Document of the Dead are mainly wrapped up in the repeated filming of one special effects moment. That zany anarchic energy seems to have been lost. Now we're standing around, waiting, getting things right, and that is arguably what happened to filmmaking between the 1970s and the 1980s, and it's only been getting more and more like this as the years have gone on, with more planning and more pre-visualization and more voices and more test audiences. No one can safely say why this is happening. Is it an expectation from audiences? Is it an expectation from funders? Nobody knows. As a kind of bitter irony, the moment that you see being filmed in Day of the Dead over and over and over again was cut from the final film.
It's a mean-spirited,
market that is mostly controlled by people still that have no affection or affinity for not only this genre, but for movies in general. It's a way to make money, unfortunately.
It's also interesting to note how the monster in the film is us. Usually, in a horror film, the monster is something different from us, something strange and unusual and far away from the idea of a person. But the monster in the Romero zombie films, and particularly Dawn of the Dead, really is us, both in zombie form and the way we fight amongst ourselves. I think it's helped by how contemporary everything is, the way the zombies are dressed, the shopping mall setting. These aren't the long dead in musty clothes from another era. These are people who were living their life just a few weeks ago, and now everything's changed. For the most part, they're just monsters, but every now and then some other kind of feeling drifts in. Sometimes they're comical, sometimes sad, sometimes pitiful. One of my favourite zombies in the film is this one, the Barks Arco Pitcairn zombie. He doesn't go for anyone, no scrambling or snarling, he just sits there. Like all he wants to do in the world is sit and look at Franny. And it's a gentle reminder that as fun as Dawn of the Dead is, there's something else going on underneath. Remember that visit to the mall Romero made with Mark Mason? He would have been looking around at all the people, and something else would have been going on in the back of his mind. What are we doing here? Are we consumers, or are we being consumed? Are we really choosing how to live our lives, or is that choice being made for us? What matters to us? What are we prioritizing with our limited amount of time here? These are questions you might be thinking while watching Dawn of the Dead, because the film is genuinely talking about this stuff, but it never gets preachy with it. It's just a background hum while you follow the A story of people trying to stay alive during the apocalypse. Also, if you've seen and loved Dawn of the Dead, then you may want to check out a 1979 film called Effects. It's made by a number of Romero collaborators, and it feels like they were all working on Dawn of the Dead and just wanted to keep the party going, and jumped on board Dusty Nelson's project to make a truly fascinating horror film about filmmaking, which is always one of my favourite genres. The gang is all here. It's Joe Pilato and John Harrison and Deborah Gordon and Tom Savini and Marty Schiff and Pascal Buber. There's a few more people that I forgot to mention too. Nice to see everyone together again. So yeah, that's Dawn of the Dead. A snapshot of what film production used to be like, and a recording of a time when you could just get a bunch of crazy friends together and put on the show right here. A roller coaster of a reminder that life is fun and being alive is great, and friends are the best, and enjoying things and having stuff is a blast. But all the while, slowly, inexorably, death is coming for you. It's coming for all of us. You don't know where and you don't know when, but one thing is a fact: it will get you eventually.